Hey ladies, this is Mocha Mommy here bringing you another video, and in this video I will be reviewing the documentary The Captain, which is on ESPN Plus. It is a four-part docuseries covering the life and career of Yankees shortstop Derek Jeter. So it basically covers from his time as a young child playing Little League all the way up to his career as the CEO of the Miami Marlins, and just talks about some of the life lessons that he's learned, and just how he has resolved conflict, how he has risen above challenges, how he has handled himself through the scrutiny of New York media, and handled being a champion. Now, I had gotten away from sports commentary for a while on this platform. And shout out to Ion X, where on his platform I had explained what made me step away from it. And, it really took some introspection, looking at a lot of the emails and reflecting on some of the great things that my introducing sports shorts and sports commentary for the use of icebreakers and also for the use of vetting and how it has helped some Black women. So I'll defer to Ion X's platform so you ladies can listen to what my frustrations were. But I really feel that this documentary gives us a lot of life lessons on when we encounter these disappointments and frustrations on how we can persevere forward. Now, some would argue that Derek Jeter is the best shortstop to play the game in the modern era. And I would argue with those people. I personally feel that the best shortstop in the modern era was Mr. Cal Ripken Jr. Cal Ripken Jr. had set the endurance record for most consecutive games played. I feel that he was basically the foundation of the extremely athletic shortstop that we see in Major League Baseball today. I think that he was excellent offensively and defensively, which was pretty rare for that time, and that the fact that he really epitomize a lot of that. I also think that Cal Ripken Jr. Has done great things for the future of baseball as far as his Little League and his philanthropy efforts are concerned. But I also think that there is a personal connection to just the Orioles at that time and to Cal Ripken Jr. at that time. So between the early to mid 90s, I was a student at Howard University. We know that kind of coming into the post-crack era, the ratios were really off as far as male to female ratio. So I didn't really have a lot of currency on the yard of Howard University. Sure, I was a member of a sorority, but I was also an ROTC cadet, so I couldn't do a lot of the social party activities that came with that. And I was also a member of a smaller sorority, and I didn't have an alpha chapter there. So I didn't have a lot of currency on the yard of Howard University, but I had a heck of a lot of currency in Camden Yards. Let me tell you something, the ratio favored me. I knew a lot about baseball. I hated the Yankees. So therefore, it was just a really great social opportunity for me. And it really helped me to explore my quote unquote sexual market value. We're still using those type of terms. But anyway, it was very interesting because this summer we ended up going to Camden Yards because I really wanted my daughters to experience that historic baseball field. They love watching the game as well. And one of the questions my daughter asked was about the concessions. And I had to let her know that I had never been to the concession stand because over 20 years ago, I'm young, I'm single, I'm cute. I'm paying for my own concessions. So that may be one of the reasons why I have such a close connection to the Baltimore Orioles during that Cal Ripken Jr. era. Now, Derek Jeter does just definitely credit his parents for a lot of his success. I find it interesting that Derek Jeter's dad was a graduate of Fisk University. He was on their baseball team in like the 60s, 70s. And his mother was, I guess she was some kind of woke woman, and she would protest for civil rights and she protested the Vietnam War. And I just thought that was very interesting. I just thought it was very interesting that here you have this good Black man, student at Fisk, the first HBCU to open after the Civil War. okay, on pretty much on the front lines of the civil rights movement. They're the ones who mostly put the Freedom Riders onto the buses from that campus. And somehow he still marries a white woman. And it just really goes to show you, like, that HBCU culture, still, I was feeling that in the 90s. You know, how it doesn't matter how woke you are. It doesn't matter how fit, feminine, and friendly. Basic white women can still get the top class of black men coming out of these HBCUs. So I just thought that was interesting. But also, it just goes to really show you, you know, how his parents, his work ethic, it really does go over his biracial identity as a player and as a man too. I mean, it was just very interesting because they even brought up the whole thing with Gary Sheffield, and how Gary Sheffield and Dave Winfield had talked about what it was like being a black Yankee, and how there was a lot of unfairness in the contract negotiations and their exposure and the support that the franchise had behind black players. But they were like, well, Derek Jeter's black. And they're like, no, Derek Jeter's biracial. So it was just very interesting. Like, his racial identity really did play a role throughout the entire series. I'll be honest, I didn't know Derek Jeter was biracial till many, many years later, because the only time I've ever heard Derek Jeter speak about his race is I remember seeing him do some kind of interview, and he was saying how players would start speaking Spanish to him, and then he would be like, no, I'm not Hispanic. So again, I never really knew Derek Jeter's racial identity, and this special really did go into it. Now, Derek Jeter has shared the field with a lot of controversial baseball players over the years, including Roger Clemens, Darryl Strawberry, and especially Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod. You'll see how Derek Jeter really did handle some of the locker room conflicts and how he handled them away from the scrutiny of the New York media. The New York media always was looking for some kind of gossip, always looking for some sort of angle to put teammates against each other. But he really, as the captain of that team, put a lot of effort into building cohesiveness and to keeping the other players on code. So you'll see multiple opportunities where Derek Jeter could have really dragged down his teammates and coworkers, but chose not to. So I really have a lot of respect for the way he handled his locker room and his coworkers. I also really respect the way Derek Jeter handled the fans, because it seems as if he had some of the same problems with the Yankees organization that those of us who don't like the Yankees organization had. For instance, Roger Clemens. Now, Roger Clemens, Roger Clemens was a dirty player, especially if you remember being a Mets fan in 2000, okay? Cody Clemens, his son, who played for University of Texas and is now with the Toronto Blue Jays, class act, okay? Cody Clemens, class act. Roger Clemens, I think he's a jerk, but you'll never hear Derek Jeter say that. You'll never really... You'll always really see that he is dedicated to the players who are dedicated to winning. He's always dedicated to the players who are dedicated to being a team. So I really think that he did a very good job of having those A to E relationships, because some relationships are A to Z and they're completely comprehensive. But there's some people he's like, I only have to we don't have to be best friends, but we do have to win games. We don't have to be best friends, but we do have to have a functional team. So I really respect the fact that he had very good boundaries. And that's a lesson we can all take, that even though they were players with these controversial playing styles, off the field controversies, he still managed to keep it professional, and he still managed to keep the team on track to win multiple World Series. One of the things that I really did respect about Derek Jeter was the fact that he kept his personal life very personal. There had always been like rumors that he had been with Starlet X or Starlet Y, things like Tyra Banks or Mariah Carey, but he never confirmed nor denied it. He never really was publicly flaunting a lot of his access to women or his wealth around New York City, even though that was very much the culture of the time. It was the 90s. It was a time of opulence. But again, Derek Jeter kept his personal life under wraps. I find it very interesting too, is that how these men who are not high achievers or high earners feel as if they can comment on what high achieving, high earning men want. Let me give you an example. During this time, there were 3 very prolific, very high-profile shortstops. There was Nomar Garcia-Parra of the Boston Red Sox. There was Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter, of course. Now, Nomar went to have probably the most notable high-profile marriage of all. He married probably the most prominent female athlete on planet Earth, the soccer player Mia Hamm. A-Rod went on to marry a psychology professor from a very wealthy, well-to-do family. She is an Ivy League graduate and a master's degree holder. That is the mother of his 2 children. They still get along to this day and co-parent. And Derek Jeter went on to get married a little bit closer to his retirement. Just didn't want to have a high-profile relationship, wanted to have that time to focus on his career. He married at the age of 38 to former tennis player and model. We only know her first name is Hannah because she has made it a point to keep her life very private. For those of you who might be familiar with Hannah's career, she was an athlete turned model. She kept her family around her and she was very private. In fact, they assumed that she would ascend to the throne like maybe Linda Evangelista or Helena Christensen. But because there were a lot of things that she refused to do, ads she refused to pose in, and just certain lifestyle that she wouldn't take on as a model, she never really blew up the way she could have. So again, I'll say this, Hannah had a part in the documentary where she claimed she didn't know who Derek Jeter was or anything like that, even though she lived in New York in 2009 when the World Series was going on and they were on the cover of every paper. She claimed she didn't know. But what I will give her credit for is knowing the right place to be with the right people, because she always kind of had her family surrounding her. Derek Jeter actually had interacted with her mother and her friend group before he ended up dating Hannah. So it just goes to really show you how important your network is and how important it is to know exactly the caliber of men you want to be around and make it a point to be around those places. Derek Jeter really did value his privacy. And if you value your privacy, certain establishments, they will maintain that in order to keep you as a customer. And I really think that Hannah being really strategic to make sure she was in the right place at the right time around the right caliber of men is really what landed her what she landed. In fact, they both even keep their kids and their personal life pretty much out of the news to this day. So ladies, I just really want to encourage you to be very strategic, because typically if you're in the right places, you don't really have to worry about broke dusties. And also, high achieving men tend to be attracted to high achieving women. None of these guys who were at the top of sports, who were making salaries far above NBA and NFL players, none of them picked some bubblehead. All of them picked very successful, accomplished women. So ladies, even if you don't like baseball, really take away the life lessons and the historical context of the game, of the franchise of the Yankees, because I really think that there are some important lessons that we can all learn and we can all take away from this. The fact that he moved in silence, the fact that he knew that some relationships are A to Z, but some are A to E, because you can't F with everybody. And he understood how to manage his teammates, his privacy, his personal life, and his money. It's a very humble brag near the end. So ladies, I really want you to really watch this special because you're going to glean a lot from it. It seems like you give a lot of energy and a lot of time to podcasts and to uploads done by losers. It's really time to start listening to the winners. Find out how they move, find out how they think, and find out where they go. Because ladies, I'm telling you, it's so much more of a better investment of your time. This is Mocha Mommy, and I'll see you in the next video.